Okay, I'd like to call to order the Village of Lake Bluff Sustainability and Community Enhancement Ad Hoc Committee special meeting for Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes. Member Busio?
Present but remote.
Member Cole?
Present.
Member Hans?
Here.
Member Mengelkock?
Here.
Member Twishel?
Here.
And Chair Renner.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Quorum of the SEC is physically present at the meeting. In regards to Member Busio, a notice was received in accordance with village policy, and Member Busio will be deemed authorized to attend the meeting electronically unless a motion objecting to the member's electronic attendance is made, seconded, and approved by 2/3 of the members of the SEC physically present at the meeting.
Do we need a motion to approve his attendance, or unless, only if we didn't want?
Correct.
Okay, all right. All right, hearing no objections. Next up, we have a consideration of the December 2nd, 2024 special meeting minutes. Does anyone have any comments or edits to those meeting minutes? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve? Second, please.
Second.
All right. Roll call?
For the
All in
minutes,
favor?
so, yeah.
All in favor, sorry.
Aye.
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 All right. At this point, we open up the committee meeting to anything that's not on the agenda. If anyone's in the audience wants to speak on something that's not on the agenda, they can speak now or forever hold their peace. Okay. We'll go on to general business then.
Yep. So the first item is the evaluation of the village's seasonal gas-powered leaf blower regulations. So at the last SEC meeting, this item was discussed, and ultimately a recommendation from the SEC was given to the village board to consider extending the gas-powered leaf blower from the gas-powered leaf blower ban from seasonal, which it currently is May 15th to September 30th, to year-round, to explore enhanced enforcement options and to extend the current school district exemption for another year. The Committee of the Whole discussed the SEC's recommendation at its January 13th, 2025 meeting. The Committee of the Whole is made up of village board trustees. Citing some emails that they received both from the Illinois Landscape Contractors Association and Superintendent Lisa Leali, the trustees expressed concerns about implementing a year-round ban on gas-powered leaf blowers, as it seems that the current battery-powered technology may not yet be a viable alternative to the gas-powered leaf blowers. That was most of what the concern was. And that said, the Committee of the Whole also talked about possibly requiring landscapers to register. They felt that might be a good method for enforcement and to also communicate rules or any changes, things like that. And so at the end of the COWS discussion, they decided to refer this matter back to the SEC to evaluate potential policy changes, specifically one, expanding the existing seasonal ban to limit the use of gas-powered leaf blowers to smaller windows during the spring and fall months. And this would be in line with some other communities that participated in the working group that initially looked at this in 2022. And then the other item that they wanted discussed was enforcement mechanisms to include landscaper registration. So staff put together some information on that, including a summary of feedback from other communities, and as well as those emails that the COW had received and had mentioned in kind of their decision to request the SEC look at the more limited ban extension. So that is a summary if you want to start from there, if you have any questions. And just one more thing to note with this, I guess I would say, is that this is something where if you want more information, you can use that. You can suggest that to us and we can come back at a later meeting for this. It's not something that has to be determined tonight. If there's more information that you would like to have before making a recommendation.
I have a question. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So on the table that you guys put together, which was awesome, that was really helpful. But Evanston's not on here, and that's the one community that has implemented a ban. So I was wondering sort of why not, because I'd love to know how they have managed these different components as well.
Yeah, because the committee of the whole recommended looking at the communities that had implemented the lesser bans. We didn't include Evanston, but that's something for a next meeting we could absolutely add.
Yeah, just sort of want, like, or do they deal with a license or not? So how do they manage some of those aspects of it?
I don't believe, as I recall, from the group, working group in the North Shore, Evanston was in that group because they had already kind of acted on their own.
Gotten going.
Yeah. The other thing I did notice on this table, but I did notice in the letter from Highland Park was the actual dates ranges. I saw that Highland Park had a specific narrowed date range, which is very helpful. But do we know the other communities' narrowed date ranges?
So they're listed slightly different. Like some will say this date through this date. Some will say excluding these months. But basically all of them exclude April. All the ones listed on that chart exclude April, October, and November. Those are the months where the gas-powered leaf blowers would be permitted.
Okay, so very similar to what we saw with the Highland Park dates.
Correct.
Okay, good. And then we can talk about that, and then we can separately talk about the permitting and licensing. So we did get some additional information just before the meeting on Highland Park's actual costs for licensing and their requirements, and I'd like to talk about that. So with that, I'll just open it up to, let's start with the first topic, which is the dates.
First of all, I want to say thank you so much to the staff, whoever that staff may be, for this excellent summary of information to prepare us for tonight's. This was a lot of work, and it was written in such a way that it was easy to comprehend. A couple of things I found really helpful is in the second paragraph on the first page, the Regional Leaf Blower Working Group's 2022 report did not recommend a 12-month ban. I thought that was interesting. I really like the idea of naming specific months, like gas-powered leaf blowers are allowed in April, October, and November. That's very easy to understand. And it makes a lot of sense because that's spring cleanup and that's fall cleanup. So I think that sounds, it's common sense. I think that's easier to accept than it's banned for 12 months. I like that. And maybe 12 months is down the road, but I think that's something that people would really latch on to. I did have a question about cost, so I'm glad we have more information about that. Because, and if you haven't downloaded this packet, you should take a look at it because it's wonderful. So on the summary sheet, we hear specifics about Glencoe, Highland Park, Kenilworth, Northbrook, and Winnetka in terms of how they communicate, how they license, how they check compliance. So it's wonderful. And it was great to see that so many other communities in our part of Chicagoland have made such great progress. And finally, I guess it was great to see the letters. I thought that was helpful. But I think my takeaway in the end, let me get my notes here, hold on. Well, here we go. So the SEC is an advisory committee, and I think we could provide more informed feedback if we learned more and if we offered Lake Bluff residents the opportunity to learn more. So I suggest that we invite community representatives from Glencoe, Highland Park, Northbrook, Winnetka, Kenilworth, and Evanston to come here. Maybe we have a panel discussion. Maybe have a different community each night. I think we need to learn more. This is a great start, but to hear boots on the ground, how did you do this? How did you manage that? What kind of feedback are you getting? I think that would give us a lot of information. I think it would inform our residents as well. But I also have to say, I think we should hear from landscapers, people who find these bans to be too much of a strain on their business, or they're not sure how to deal with clients who want leaf blowers even though there's a ban. So I don't think it should be only the people who are pro-electric. I think we should hear kind of a balanced. So that would be my request, is that we put that together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make some really great points in terms of if we are to do, right now we have a 6.5 month ban, right? And so I know we're like 6.5 months to a year. That's kind of what we're teetering on right now. I like this idea of like April, you know, and October, November. It's easy to remember, it's easy to communicate, and it's easy, I think, to accept. No
And
one's,
to enforce.
yeah,
Especially if that's what other communities are leaning towards, because a lot of these landscapers do work from community to community, and the more uniform, and that was the point of having all these communities generally come up with a standard, was it makes it easier for the landscapers if they don't have to have huge variations between communities.
once they cross,
Yeah.
village lines or whatever we call those. So I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and I think it is a tempered solution from a full year ban. However, we've been talking about this for 2 years now. We've been telling everybody for 2 years now. I think I'm on both sides of the fence right now. I understand why we want to do it. I think that is a very simple solution that can be in the middle of
And could probably start this year.
probably start this year. It extends our 6.5 month ban to a 9 month ban while we're progressing our way towards that full year shut off. We are still seeing a lot of pushback, even though we've been talking about it for 2 years. There are a lot of people who are still, don't do this. I don't want to tell people how to live their lives, but I know that there are a lot of citizens around here who are very passionate about this issue. So I don't have the answer. I'd love to hear other committee members' thoughts.
I don't want to forget about Michael.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Michael, do you have any comments on this? Oh, is he-
Muted.
I'm gonna hit ask to
Hearing none?
unmute Mike.
There we go. Okay, I'm sorry. My absence is in the benefit of trying to keep all of you healthy. So I wanted to stay away. I've got some bug. I like the comments that have been made by my fellow members. And I think, taking another step forward to make it clearer with specific months and more months would be a good step for us to take, and consistent, as Chair said, with other communities, and making it consistent for the landscape companies to deal with it as they go community to community. But at some point, I think someone's got to take the first step to what we all believe is going to be an eventual major transition and outright ban on gas-powered leaf blowers. I don't think any of the communities will deny that. It's just a question of when, not if. And so I think the when will be determined by continued education that we could facilitate for our community members of the benefits of one, not cleaning up quite as much, which is the logical alternative, and two is the negative impacts of the gas-powered blowers, not only noise but pollution and disruption to the other initiatives that we've been focused on, whether it's Bird City USA, or keeping our health of our natural environment. So I guess I would support if we as a group could think about moving forward with more of a ban based on the discussion we've talked about select months, but put some specific initiatives in place regarding education and awareness. And I don't think it'd be too bad to ask the landscaper companies to participate with us in this. We right now kind of have somewhat of an adversarial relationship with them, and I don't think it has to be that way. I know most of these landscape companies are concerned as we are about the environment, are concerned about our neighborhoods. They live in our neighborhoods, and I think we need to raise the level of awareness and enlightenment for all parties involved so that we can make this eventual step together where we don't have to, have such heavy-handed ordinances and stuff. It just becomes a natural evolution, as it was when we banned smoking, when we put in place seatbelts. For the health of everybody. Eventually, everybody buys in.
I do want to add that the original working committee that Drew and I were on with the other committees did include members of major landscape companies, and they gave their input, and that document, that draft municipal that we used to form the first one, which is very similar to some other communities in that group, was more or less okay. The landscapers were okay with the rules. So if we're looking at here, the next step, like just making it a little stricter, I think at some point, looping the landscaping companies back in to that discussion as it gets stricter and stricter would be wise to bring them back in and not just forget about them, because we had them on the original draft. Yeah. I just wanted to add that we did involve them in the original discussions.
Understand and agree with your thoughts. Yep.
Thank you, Michael.
Mm-hmm. So I appreciate everybody's thoughtful comments. I would say we have had 2 years. It's gone really well. We've received overwhelmingly positive remarks from the citizens. I think we only formally at least got one, if I am remembering right, that was requesting a variance. That wasn't one of the public institutions. So, I feel like the community has spoken really loudly about feeling really positive about it. So I appreciate that the committee of the whole had reservations. If it helps to go a little more slowly, I personally still stand by the idea of a ban, but if it's easier to gradually get there and to do 3 months, I can appreciate that need also, but I think we need to keep in mind all the feedback we've received that's been overwhelmingly supportive. And I wonder if there couldn't be, if we go into licensing, which, I worry about administration of that and that it's an additional burden on the staff, but is it something where that fee is free if you're using all electric gear anyway? So there's, an incentive built in there as well to save money for transitioning or whatever that may be. So
Yeah.
those are my thoughts.
I do want to circle back and have more discussion on the licensing separately. I think we're getting towards the first part discussion. But
And I guess one question also is this the complete universe of sort of North Shore communities that have started walking this walk? Yeah, it
Well,
is. Other than Evanston.
Other than Evanston, and then we did reach out to, I believe it was Wilmette that we didn't hear back from. These were the ones that were in the working group, but we can search beyond that too and see if we're able to come up with any other communities that have done it separately.
Just to make sure we weren't
Yeah.
sort of handpicking.
No, it was
but
just
it was
based on the
more-
working group, yeah.
What's comprehensive.
I also have a question. I'm wondering, Do we have any like hard numbers on how many landscapers currently have electric leaf blowers, either from our community or the surrounding communities, and just kind of trying to gauge like how hard it would be to make the shift for them if they're already doing it in other communities, as we can see from here. Maybe it would be less burdensome versus, and that can help us kind of gauge whether or not this needs to be an all-year thing or if people need more time to adjust.
The licensing would allow us to acquire that kind of data. I don't think we have any idea.
Yeah,
Otherwise-
we don't have any records of which companies or which individual landscapers are doing business within Lake Bluff right now. We don't have any registration, so we don't have a great way of really getting that data. As you can see in this chart, there's other communities kind of within our general vicinity that do require or have a similar sort of ban, but maybe more expansive, like this 9-month one that we're talking about. So it's likely that, you know, the companies that are in, for instance, Highland Park and that would do work in Lake Bluff would likely have those leaf blowers, or ones that have been doing business in Lake Bluff for a while now, since we have that.
The only real data, excuse me, we do have are the verbal warnings that were issued, right, from our notes
Yeah.
here in 2023, there were 38, and in 2024, there were 15. So, I mean, they know, you know, believe me, they all know that this is coming, and everyone's talking about it. And we've been, to remember Tritchell's point, we've been talking about this for 2 years, so.
Anecdotally, my landscaper was an individual, when this first started or was about to start, I had a conversation with him. I said, because he's a one-man shop, I said, do you need help? You know, I can get you one, you can use it at my house, whatever. He says, oh, no, I do a few houses in Highland Park too, and I know how to do this. So, you know, they had the electric leaf blowers. It's just, if we're doing one step more, it's just taking another month or two out of that they're still using the ones that they're using. So, if there's nothing else I'd like to talk about, start with the licensing. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I think there's two concerns I have about, I like the licensing. I think it's a good idea to avoid because we had a lot of discussion about complaints and enforcement. You know, they've gone down, but some people were pretty upset that they had to get involved and call the police and all that. I think it's a good idea. I like the idea of making it easy at first and helpful to smaller businesses. I don't want to push out anyone except the larger landscapers who can pay, you know, $400 or $200 and have to show liability insurance, which, you know, some of these guys who are just working out of their home with a pickup truck. So I think that if we're going to do licensing, it should be to just get compliance, that they say, yes, I do understand this. Maybe it's free for, you know, places of less than 4 employees or whatever. Maybe the insurance requirements are just, because we saw Highland Park, it's just simple automotive, general, and not some sort of workers' liability or insurance of $1 million if they blow a pine cone into your window or something. But I'm for it, I guess. I would just like to see it less onerous at first.
I'm concerned about the administrative toll
Yeah,
that it
oh,
will
yes.
take on
Yeah.
a village the size of ours. If we had a much larger administrative department to be able to handle the record keeping and the licensing and the fact finding and all of that stuff, but I'm afraid our small village might not have the resources for that.
So
I
that's a
also,
good question for village staff.
yeah,
And you know, maybe adding to this chart would be population. So we could look the size of Lake Bluff compared to the populations of these other communities. One of the things that jumped out at me, you know, I had a question about cost, because there's a cost to the landscapers, but then there's a cost to the residents through the village in order to administer this and to enforce it. And one of the things that came up for Highland Park is that it says residents can call the non-emergency line when witnessing a violation. The code enforcement officer assists with the enforcement. That sounds like it's a whole new position, or maybe it's one person that has a different title, but it speaks to the infrastructure that needs to be put into place. I don't know if we have that now for Lake Bluff.
We were
But
already enforcing it, weren't we? We were
We were
writing
enforcing
warnings
it,
and
yeah,
stuff.
some
Wasn't it the
communities.
policeman?
Yeah, some communities have a dedicated code enforcement officer. If somebody's grass is too long, they'll call that person, and they are the ones who will actually write that citation or whatever it is.
But
ticket.
I think let's say that it was, just for sake of argument, it's very simple to get one. Just, you acknowledge the
Yes.
rules, you agree to follow the rules, and you get a little sticker. Maybe it's even $10 or $5 to cover, the sticker costs. Just seeing that sticker on a car, I think, is, with a number on it, or if someone doesn't see it, that's really easy for the police to enforce, right?
Right, you're talking about on the trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to find it.
So is that an annual registration?
That's a good question, too.
Is it, we need these guys to come check in every year with us? Is it something they can do online, apply for
Well,
online?
I think, to me, and again, to me, the biggest part of the sticker is, yes, I understand this, I agree to it. I'm not gonna mess with it. You're not gonna find me violating this with my sticker on my window. And here's my copy of my automobile insurance, and that's it. And from that standpoint, I think that new stickers would only be needed if we changed the regulations every 2 years or whatever we would do the next steps. I don't see it to be a yearly thing, other than, maybe they lose their automobile insurance, but as long as they've agreed to the current set of rules, I think that's, And if it's a red sticker or a blue sticker, oh, you got the red sticker, you're under the current, and if we change it in 2 years, you got the blue sticker, I don't know.
So would landscapers have a sticker for every community they serve? Or can the licensure carry over? If you're licensed in Highland Park, you've got this sticker, that means you're also licensed in these other
The
communities.
problem is we have to specifically align with every I and T in their regulation with ours.
Gotcha,
If there's any variances,
But that's a very interesting approach
yeah.
to being like, okay,
for a start,
For a
start,
start,
Could be.
right.
one sticker to rule them all, right?
we could say if you don't have a sticker, you need one. If you have one from Highland Park or this community or that community, that's sufficient.
But I mean, again, just the legwork to get everyone aligned.
You just make Highland Park manage it.
Make them the boss of
Just
it
send
all.
everybody to Highland Park and say, if you got the Highland Park sticker, you can work in Lake Bluff.
And you know what, too, we can
That's
grow
funny.
this little by little. We start somewhere, maybe we start with this April, October, November. And then we start with the sticker and then we learn as we go, what's gonna work for us. We get feedback from the residents. We get feedback from the landscapers because, a lot of us really rely on our landscapers. They provide a good service for us. The other thing, and I've said this many times, is that the landscapers do what their customers ask them to do. So we're talking a lot about the companies, but really, to Michael's point about education and asking residents to say, don't blow all the leaves away, just leave some of them here. So we're responsible for what we ask the landscapers to do, and they will comply with our wishes. So we can't take the homeowner and resident or, school, park district, we can't take that out of this equation of reducing gas-powered leaf blowers.
Any more questions on the licensing? So I think we have a general recommendation to make it easy, either letting them have a Highland Park or surrounding community sticker, or if they have neither of those, get one from the village, but make it a simple process.
They're not looking for a recommendation from us at this time, correct? We have,
It's something where if you wanted to make a recommendation, if you feel like you have all the data needed, then you're welcome to do that. If you want more information, like for instance, if you say, okay, we know how much Highland Park is charging, but what are the other communities charging? That's something that we can
The
come back
question
with.
is what is the timeframe right now?
Right.
Because we're running up against, 30 days to spring.
Yeah.
Are we going to have to stay with this if we don't make a decision or recommendation, and what is the timing here? Because I felt like last time we were kind of like, we got to get this in.
Yeah.
Because we're going to go. I would like to see it tightened a little bit before this spring, but I'm wondering if we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Well, what I would say to that is the ban will be in effect from May 15th through September. So it would, if it were to be recommended and get to the village board, and they would discuss it probably at another cow meeting and at a first reading of an ordinance and a second reading. So you're probably a month, maybe 2 out then. That already brings us to April. So I think we have time just because of our current ban being in place. If we
Okay.
wanted to, because really it would come down to the fact that it would still be banned basically through September 30th.
Okay, so it would take effect in the fall?
That's something to discuss,
Right,
but
'cause
the
we're only
time frame
changing it,
itself,
right.
yeah, if you're looking at the 9-month ban would still be pretty in
Okay.
line with that. And just one other thing that I did want to point out that could be a potential thing to consider in regards to the time frame. We did, knowing that you guys had interest in a year-long ban, we did ask the municipalities we looked at if they were considering a year-round ban. And a lot of them said, we'll reevaluate in this year. Like we had one, Highland Park said in 2027, Northbrook said in 2028, Winnetka said in 2029. So if that's something that you've noted that you're working towards, that can be part of a recommendation.
Okay, in
that-
terms of the phasing to
Yeah.
meet when they're planning to do their next. Because I do like the synchronizing with, if they're considering going stricter and stricter. But it sounds like even going from the 6 to the 9, we're doing a little catch up with some communities.
Right.
I go back to I don't know which side of the fence to fall on because the 9 feels comfortable, but then it's like we keep changing the goalposts on everybody every year, instead of just being we're done with it.
Yeah,
Everybody, we're done. We're
right. I understand that, and I think that's
It
why.
gets a little
I think that's
complicated
why
for
we
people to follow the
recommended it
rules.
The first time.
Yeah.
That we really wanted to go for it. I think that, they're just trying to find some common ground, and, I know our role is to be very forward with our recommendations.
But it's this type of thing that causes confusion. That
Right.
well,
Well,
now they were saying 6.5, but now it's 9, which is why I gravitated towards your April, October, November.
But that's
Fine.
basically what Highland Park is doing, right?
Right.
So, and some of the other communities, so I don't think, I think we're moving in lockstep with the general consensus, so I like that idea, and I like the fact that they're talking about in just, 3 years, 2 years, some of these communities are gonna start looking at it again for a full ban, and a lot can happen in 2 or 3 years. Remember, too, this has been wildly successful, so another couple of months will make it even more successful. So what we're doing is definitely an improvement, and if it's coordinating with the other towns, it just, especially from an enforcement standpoint and our contractors, it makes it,
From their perspective, it makes it a lot easier to follow one rule than
Right.
it is to have
Right.
to understand the changing rules between each town
because they
and
might
border.
just skip a community that's stricter.
Yeah.
And we could say, well, that's fine, you don't come here, but, we want to make it easy for some of these landscapers to be
Yes.
consistent.
And conduct business in Lake Bluff.
Just one more anecdotal piece of information. With our initial rollout of our current ban, we actually use the list that Highland Park keeps of licensed landscapers to send out communications saying, if you do work in our
Nice.
community, these are the new rules. And so, to your point of, changing the regulations every few years, I think if we were to do licensing, that would be a very good tool to help communicate that. If you saw the letter from Highland Park, just letting them know exactly what the regulations are. And in considering that, whether it's, an annual license or not, that's something to consider too, is having just that piece of paper go to the landscaper saying, this is exactly what the approval is based on, and here's the new information. That's a tool to use to
Possible, yeah,
communicate.
it's good to know.
You know, the other thing I think it's important for us to consider is that we said we'd like a 12-month ban that went to committee of the whole, and they bounced it back to us
Right.
for further consideration. And I'm happy they did that instead of just nixing it. They said, you need to think this through a little bit more. And I want to make sure they know we heard that message. We got that message. And this is, so it's a little bit of negotiating to, instead of all or nothing, we hear what you're saying, we still want more, but we can take a chunk instead of the whole 12 months. So I think that we will get it past the committee of the whole. We will make progress if we heed what they've sent us a message
Right, and then it can get to the board quicker.
and get to the board quicker. And I think that, you know, this is a process. I'm not surprised that they kicked it back to us. It's just how you move, you know, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's normal.
Yeah, we'll get comments on the lighting ordinance.
Yes, yes, we will. It'll be the same thing as long as we keep showing up
Right.
and have our
But I
ideas
don't
and our
mind putting
comments ready.
I don't mind putting it all out on the table and them going, yeah, that's great, but this isn't us. That's the way it works.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we were like, when we first started this thing, we were like, 2 years and then 12-month ban,
Right,
you know?
yeah.
And everyone's known that. That hasn't changed, and so.
I do want to make sure, Michael, we're listening to you. I know.
Yeah, no, really, thank you. Good discussion. I also agree with Marietta that, you know, the board bouncing it back to us is respective of our role.
yes.
And I think we need to come up with some initiatives that we can move forward to bring all these parties together.
Yes.
I was doing some research this week, and I was going to bring it in, but I'll provide it to staff. The city of Santa Cruz did a study on the break-even analysis of going from gas-powered leaf blowers to electric. And they included, you know, the cost of maintenance, the cost of gasoline, wear and tear against the cost of investing in new battery-powered leaf blowers. And surprisingly, the break-even is just about 14 months for commercial equipment. Now, there's a lot of information in that report that one can pick at in terms of, you know, how much maintenance is needed and the cost of petrol and oil and that. But what I took away from it, team, is that there is some financial justification for the landscapers to move this way. I do believe that the leaf blower technology, if not there, is very close to being industrial ready with its capability. And investing in a few extra batteries for backup. But the backpack blowers, some of these now are really made for industrial strength and longevity of time that they could be used during the day. So I think our role, and if we went back to the board with maybe some initiatives of what we're going to do with the landscape community, maybe we could put together a seminar on education for them, along with residents, on the financial justification of going electric, the environmental justification, and again, my point is, I think we could all get there together versus being one of rules and regulations and ordinances and bans. If we kind of bring people to the table and start this discussion, I don't think any of the landscapers have said, no, hell no, I'm never going to do this. It's a question of time and, to them, money.
Yeah.
So I think we've got the opportunity to help with that.
You know, it occurs to me, we brought up the discussion of getting back together with the communities.
Yes.
What happened during the original communities getting together, it would be like on a Saturday down in Highland Park, right? Because it was kind of a middle ground for some of the communities to meet. Maybe we should talk to Drew, and there should be a touch base, since it's been a few years.
Yeah.
And it could even be done on a Teams meeting, but it was nice to sit in a conference room in Highland Park or Deerfield. I think one of them was actually done at the Botanical Gardens, which was really nice.
Nice, yeah.
We could request that we do all come back together again so that we're not going in too many different directions.
Boy, I like that idea a lot.
I like the idea too.
Yeah.
Okay. And we didn't have the committee's involvements, and so it could be a larger group as well.
And we all know a lot more now than we did
Yeah.
then.
Okay. We are going to open it up to the audience, so we'll get your input. The one last thing we didn't talk about was the school.
Oh, yeah.
Can we get some input on exemptions or no exemptions, or what we want to grant the school? The thing I would say about this is that I know there's a cost involved in investing in this equipment. We talked about it last time. I think that perhaps it's not as, the cost is there, but I don't think I'm not sure what batteries they have or what equipment, but they've gotten a lot better in terms of this, and maybe they're not aware that there are some stuff that runs more than 8 minutes
Right.
than what, maybe the one they got was a low-powered or low-battery model. So the question is do we exempt them permanently, which was someone mentioned in some of this material? Do we push it off another 2 years along with the next revision of this code to see where the technology goes? But at that, I'll open it up to the committee.
One of our residents, Christine Klauter, I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, she wrote a letter that I thought was really pretty common sense. And I'm not going to read it verbatim, but she basically says, you know, there are commercial strength leaf blowers. I'm not sure if they're using residential leaf blowers. They're much less powerful. And there are lots of reviews online of these commercial strength leaf blowers. And she also points out, and we mentioned this at our last meeting, that if a PTO got organized, they could put together a fundraiser and buy the equipment that needs to be done. Because it's not hard to use a leaf blower. It's just learning how to switch batteries and, you know, all the instructional things. So my opinion is that how can we support the school to comply with what the rest of the village is doing? And maybe that's a conversation with the PTO, or, you know, taking it further than the school saying one thing, a resident saying another, we're saying something different. So I think somehow we have to find a way to encourage the school to comply instead of saying, never mind, you really don't have to follow this, because that's a slippery slope.
I mean, I can't speak to the, excuse me, the middle school, but I live right next to the elementary school. And I know that when this is happening, it's not during school hours. They do it on the weekends when they go out there and they blow. But they'll be out there for 4 hours working with their equipment, and it's very loud, and it's all of the terrible things that we talked about every time we come together. But I agree that, you know, the technology is there. They're like, our battery only lasts 18 minutes. They're batteries that last 5 hours, right?
Exactly, yes.
The equipment does cost maybe twice as much as a gas-powered.
Right.
But there are no fuel costs, there are no oil costs, there are none of those costs. So I don't buy they're not strong enough argument, or the batteries don't last long enough argument. It just means you have old technology, because we know that the technology exists for them to have them. I think asking for a complete ban, or excuse me, a complete exemption, what is it, in perpetuity? Is that what
Yes,
they're asking for? I think
that's
is sort of way out of step with what we are asking to do. And I am not of the inclination to grant such an exemption.
So maybe you'd be open to a short-term extension for the PTO or whoever to come up with funding. I know that everyone's short money. Everyone's worried about taxes and costs and everything, and I understand that completely.
I think we said at our last meeting that we thought they could have a 1 year.
I know that the Park District has 2 backpack battery blowers, Stills. They bought them last year, and the guy who I spoke with who was running them was like, it's great. I have no problems with it whatsoever.
I wonder if there's a shared arrangement.
That's a very good question. I also know that the school uses the Park District's little bobcats with the brush roller things
Yes.
to clear the snow, and that's something that could easily be used to clear leaves on a sidewalk, right? The little brush roller thing.
Exactly.
So they have lots of equipment, lots of
already
technology
there.
at their disposal that if the gas-powered leaf blower, I don't know why anyone would take a stand over a gas-powered leaf blower. That doesn't make sense to me.
Michael, comment?
I would not support an extension for this, an exception. I think we had a situation with a resident asking for an exception, and we denied that. And I think we need to, we've given them notice, and I like the idea of, helping connect resources to them, PTOs,
Yeah.
other organizations to do it, but the technology's there, and I think they just have to step up and find a way to procure that. And again, we can help connect those resources to them to help with that.
So I definitely don't support a permanent waiver. It sort of flies in the face of the intent of the whole initiative. We did already recommend extending it for a year, which I think is great. I mean, if they really needed 2 years to be able to, build it into the budget to switch it out, or, that's not the end of the world to me either. But I think we all want to be paddling in the same direction. Yeah.
I agree. I think a permanent ban is way too much out there. I agree with the year that we previously recommended, and I agree that it's more of a question of organization, of getting everyone on the same page, whether that be like PTO fundraiser. If they need a little time to do that, that's perfectly understandable, but permanent exemption is not the way to go.
Okay, great, thank you. If it's okay with the committee, why don't we open it up to comments from anyone in the audience? If you'd like to speak on this, anyone can, you'd have to come up to the podium, give your name and address. If not, we can conclude. Anyone want to speak? Okay, please come up.
Thank you. I'm Chris Claywitter, and I've been here before, and I'm very encouraged by what I'm hearing tonight because I think we have not felt heard, despite the number of emails and letters and meticulous counting, elaborating on what we're experiencing. I think we just really have not felt heard. And we've sort of talked about in our group that has come up with a petition, how we feel like this is very similar to big tobacco of the 60s and 70s, where the thinking was that smokers had all the rights and people who wanted to have clean, fresh air did not have a right to that they would be infringing on the smokers' rights. Well, I feel personally like the landscapers have had a lot of input into this, and I read over the regional leaf blower report and noted that there were 3 landscaper, either private companies or association that contributed to that, but there was nothing outside of official municipality officials or like a sustainability committee that contributed to that. There was no room for residents to have input. And I think that that's what's missing, not the landscaper input, although I think what you have suggested here tonight is a very good idea. I think there needs to be a survey of what they have and how ready are they? But I would also suggest that they may underestimate their readiness. I think there is an eventuality to this, and I think that we need to finally pull the trigger on it. I find it interesting that Evanston's plan and their actions, although they weren't part of the regional leaf blower report, they were not included in the information, and I think that they have a lot to offer. So we have come up, and I think you probably already know, we have come up with a petition with specific ideas, which is in line with what has been discussed here tonight. We still support a full ban, and we would like to see a ban eventually come to Lake Bluff, not 2, not 3, not 5 years. I'd like to see this reviewed again in a year, because I think we're ready. I think it just needs to be done. People need to come together and, say, this, district can do it, why can't we? We need to be in alignment with everybody else. Well, I think other municipalities are moving forward with what's right for their communities, but we have decided that we have to do what they do. Our community is very different. We are very densely packed. I know that my home on the east side is 10 feet from my house to my property line. On the west side, it's 15 feet. So the property to the east of me is a corner lot. They have at least 2 leaf blowers every week, every Tuesday, operating. And I have to hear that for hours. I'm very lucky that the people to the west of me don't use landscapers until about 3 houses down. People in back of me use landscapers, and so you've got it from all different directions. I think that we need to limit how many leaf blowers can be used, gas leaf blowers can be used on a given property simultaneously. And I think some of what needs to be considered in making a limitation is not only the size of the property, but how close in proximity are they to their neighbors? I mean, this isn't Long Grove where the properties are 5 acres. We are on like 75 by 125 foot lots, very closely packed together. And a few months ago, neighbors said, they were working in their homes and they had 6 leaf blowers going around them. I mean, it's enough to drive you crazy. This is what we need to hear from, not so much the landscapers. It's the residents that live here, that bought homes here, that chose this area, that pay taxes. When do our voices come to play? I don't know if you've taken a look at the petition that we have, but if you're interested, I have a piece of paper here with a QR code on it that you can access it, and I can pass that around if you don't mind.
Yeah, and if you can share that with staff, we can.
Sure, you can
Is
keep
this
those.
a new one or the one from before?
This is the only one that I know of that's currently circulating in the village. And we currently have over 100 signatures. So people are interested, and in our petition, we are suggesting a 9-month ban because we see that we can't get a full ban right now. So we're trying to ease this in. We also want a limitation on the number of leaf blowers that can be used on a given property at one time. And additionally, we would love to see the hours changed. I didn't bring the hours with me, but I think that landscapers can operate Monday through Friday until 6, I believe?
8 to 6.
8 to 6, yeah. I'd like to see that shortened to maybe 4, possibly 5, and no weekends. I know that's a stretch, but that's what we're asking. I've also drawn up some things that we would also like to have done. I know that there is data on how much noise, both with low frequency, sound quality, and decibel level that a leaf blower emits within 50 feet, how it carries to 800 feet. We've never done a sound analysis here in Lake Bluff. And I think that that is particularly important because where that sound analysis was done that was reported in the regional leaf blower report, I believe it was done in Washington, D.C. It was done in an open area. I believe it was a parking lot. I'd like to see one done in our neighborhoods so that we can measure how much noise, how far it travels. We already know that at greater than 75 decibels, it can be heard, it travels 50 feet at least, it can be heard. And that the specific sound quality due to low frequency makes it so that it can be heard in buildings even made of concrete. Now, most of our houses are not made of concrete. So you're hearing what your neighbors are doing. And I'd like to see a sound analysis. Drew sort of mentioned that at the committee of the whole meeting and said, we never did one. And I thought, yeah, we never did one. We need to do one. I'd also like to see that there is a pollution and particulate emission analysis. We know that gas leaf blowers emit formaldehyde and benzene. And I think we need to look at what's going up into our air as a result of these. And then I'd like to see us come back in a year and get to a full ban. It's time. So I'll pass this out as well. Sorry, I only have one of those. Thank you for all your hard work. I have to say, this discussion tonight has been so much more in-depth than what we heard with the village meeting. We felt they were dismissive. They didn't take into account any of the letters that they had received. There was no mention of any of the studies that you undertook to do the regional leaf blower report. And they just said, we're fine with it. So thank you so much for all your hard work. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for your thoughtful comments and great
Yes.
ideas.
I want to say that, just how we've gotten here from having no ordinance, there was a lot of time put in by all the communities, including village staff, to get us to this point. So we did understand the need, and that's, call it a baby step, call it a half step. And I know that there's a big push to get the full step. I mean, the committee did recommend to the committee of the whole a full year ban. So we are with you. We're just trying to, as discussed.
get
we're
there.
Trying to get there. And this is very important to us. It was very important to all the communities. And there was a lot of passionate discussion on those Saturday meetings that I was in. So we hear you. Anyone else from the audience want to speak? Okay, any closing comments on this issue? I think we got a general.
Well, yeah, so I mean, I think I love the ideas of particulate and sound. I don't know if you guys are able to tell us like what a cost would be. I mean, for sound, I think you just put something in various locations and
We would
let it run for a
honestly,
couple days.
to do it in a way that would be, as I'm an engineer, to do it in a way that would be valid and, sit there, we'd have to hire a sound consultant. And we'd have to hire a emissions consultant. And they wouldn't be super expensive, but they wouldn't be cheap. We're talking probably $10,000-$15,000.
And we've seen those studies. I mean, those studies
Yeah.
exist as they are.
Yeah, so.
We've seen a lot of them have been brought to us while we've been discussing this very issue.
Right, but if we wanted to do one specifically in Lake Bluff, we would have to hire, I'm not opposed to it, I'm just saying it's tax dollars that have to be spent.
Yes.
And we'd have to get that in the budget. Again,
Yes.
I'd be curious, we're also, not to get into the next issue for the next meeting, we're looking at lighting ordinance, and we're gonna talk about how we can measure light pollution and enforcement of that, which is a very complicated issue as well, so. Okay,
Chair, I've got one comment if I can make it.
Sure.
Mike? And I'm wondering if staff, as we get into spring and this gas-powered leaf blower season, could we put out a little bit more specific information to residents, maybe in our weekly online newsletter or other forms, on kind of best practices, neighborly best practices for yard cleanup? You know, you hate to have to remind people how to be a good neighbor, but you know, the last speaker there, I really appreciate your comments, and I've witnessed it too. When you've got two landscapers with these gas-powered jetpacks cleaning up a very small lot, blowing a couple leaves, it does get a little ridiculous. So my wonder is if we can, in the pursuit of education and awareness and enlightenment, continue to push out information to our residents that, I think Marietta made the comment, you know, they're the ones in charge. They can tell their landscape crews, you know, be a little more thoughtful about using the jetpacks. How about we just use one at a time on my property? Don't clean up quite as much. You know, I really don't want you to come on the weekends if possible. I mean, just something to remind people of the fact that we do have close lots, that, you know, the noise is not healthy. And I think we can, if we can just kind of reinforce why we're doing this, get away from the ban kind of discussion, more in terms of the awareness, education, enlightenment.
Yep.
Well, I think that's a great reminder as well, just to be neighborly. I know someone in my neighborhood loves to start mowing at 7:30 on the weekends and, you know, texting their wife, you know, like, is that necessary? So I think people sort of forget that there's other people around.
Yes.
So maybe sort of being a good neighbor is a great approach.
And you know, Chris, is it Clotweiler? Is that? Claywitter. In one of the emails you sent to Drew and Claire, you included a link to an article, this article right here. Oh, is that the one that I included? Yes, but anyway, it's a wonderful article, and it's called What's Wrong with Leaf Blowers? It's from 2020. But in the one of the last pages, it says, if you must tidy your yard. And then there are specific guidelines about if you really feel like you should, and that's fine. But there's a certain neighborly way to do it, and there's also an environmentally friendly way to do that, and you still feel like you're tidying up. So I would encourage everybody, go to the packet, look at Chris's letter, the link is right there, tap on it. I printed it out. It's very encouraging, and it has a lot of very specific information about sound and sound frequency and air pollution and particles that have been, you know, spewing out into the air, and also the damage to insect life and, you know, blasting leaves off the face of the earth, you know, really does a lot of harm to the trees and the insect life, and the whole web of life. So I found this to be very, very helpful. So I would encourage everybody to print this or look at it online and read it. It's really helpful, Chris.
Thank you for your feedback. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with that one, are you guys recommending something, or are you asking for additional information?
I think that the consensus here was to move to the simple month,
Okay.
a designation. I think the idea that we're open to the registration in a way that does not overburden the staff and create a hardship for, you know, smaller landscapers, you know, whether that's a free sticker or, you know, if you have one in Highland Park, you do not, we need one in Lake Bluff. But I think I'd like to leave that a little flexibility to the staff to say, yes, we do want to do something, but it should be simple at first.
Okay.
And that will help with enforcement and easy to pick out people who know when they're in town, oh, they got the sticker, they've been through the training, they've acknowledged the practices.
So are we going to come forward and say gas leaf blowers are allowed in April, September, and October, or excuse me, October and November?
Yes,
Okay,
For commercial businesses.
for commercial businesses.
yes.
You know, we do have residents,
We do have residents.
and does that apply to them as well?
No.
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 The leaf blower ban only applies to commercial industries, not residents.
Oh, no, that's not
Yeah, I
right.
don't believe
I think it's
that.
to everybody.
No,
It's for
wait,
everybody.
right, do you have that? one?
I have it
I know we
linked
talked
into
about
one
this
of these. We
before.
did talk about
No,
this.
because it was, residents are saying, I want to be exempt. And it applies to everyone.
Does it? I thought it was only commercial.
No, because remember, we had the resident who read the letter and said,
Yeah.
And we said no.
we said no. So
that's
it
right.
applies to
Okay. Okay.
everybody.
My mistake.
Yeah, I know we had this debate before, I just
Yeah.
didn't remember.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
no, it applies to everybody.
It was
Okay.
2 years ago.
It was 2 years
years
ago.
No, so it's residents and businesses. If you're blowing your own leaves, you still have to, use the gas in April, October, and November.
Correct.
Yep,
So we gotta issue them leaf blower cards.
yes. And I like your idea about getting together again.
Yeah, I do. I think the communities, especially, with, okay, this is where we're going, I think there's a discussion, and maybe we can see where their thoughts are too, and learn from them. It might be just a 1-day, 3-hour meeting again. So, but I'll let Drew reach out to and you guys to reach out to the other boards. or
And then
other
maybe open
communities.
that up so any other residents that might want to come could come.
It could be a two-parter, because I know it could be, yeah. I'll let them figure out what's been magic, because otherwise it could turn into a 12-hour day.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, it could be open with restricted, I don't know. how
There could be an open comment period for an hour or two, then there could be a committee.
Sure.
It's not really a committee, it's more just a general discussion among the officials. And remember,
A symposium of sorts.
when I went, it was me and Drew, but if we were to meet as communities, I think all of us would be invited.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'd have a wider base anyway, but I think, yeah, the comments from residents would be important. Just remember, we're bringing, 8 communities together, so that's 8 times how many villages and residents you're going down McCormick Place and running out.
Yeah.
Yes. And maybe there's a way for residents to get information to us that then we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
relay.
Well, let's say we want to do this, let's figure out the logistics.
Okay.
They were not on the original working committee. I think there could be a place for them to provide comment. But remember, this working group was these communities who wanted to get started. Evanston was way ahead of everybody, so this community was like, how can we all do this?
But does it have to be limited to the municipalities that participated in the leaf blower?
I don't think it has to, but it was a group that worked a lot of hours to put together, and Evanston didn't want to participate anyway.
But they could have compelling information based
Well,
on
yeah.
their experience.
We could ask them to come as a, just to talk. But yeah. Okay.
Okay, so those 2 items, yep, great.
Oh, and I think we agreed on the school, the 1 year was enough.
And when does that year start?
With the new draft of the thing, doesn't it?
With whatever, I would
Whenever
think
the
with
ordinance
whatever,
hits.
yeah,
Yeah.
is passed.
Okay.
Changing that, so.
So it might be like a year and a half if you count today. So, okay.
Plenty of time for the PTO to buy the newest technology for our children. Sorry, could you go to the podium,
Yeah,
please?
it would help, yeah.
Because we have
The
audience
folks,
on TV.
the folks
too.
on can hear it. Yeah.
We have a studio audience and
Yes.
audience at home.
Yes. So maybe I missed it, but what are your thoughts on enforcement other than registration and asking for licensure? And maybe you'll have to sort of think about those.
Well, it's a good question.
Maybe-
It's something we discussed in the last meeting, and
Yeah.
something that I brought up was including the homeowners with any sort of
Right.
fines or
Yes.
fees, not just punishing the service class that
Yes.
we are hiring to come do all of the work that we don't want to do, but
Yes.
tying some sort of penalty to the homeowners themselves, but
Yeah.
with a warning first, obviously, some sort of warning, but then using whatever fines or fees are collected in the hopes of helping hard cases potentially purchase the new technology that they would need in order to do
Yeah.
the work here. So knowing that those fines and fees would go to a good place, so to speak, in helping others.
Right. I think the sticker does help with the enforcement, because if you come out and you do, hey, you don't have a sticker, I don't want to see you in town again until you have a sticker. you know, that, and you take the license plate down, you know, and then you let the homeowner know that your guy's not welcome back here without a sticker.
Well,
I mean, it's going to help enforcement from where we are.
yes, yes.
I know Evanston, with their registration, they publish the list of landscapers that are registered. So people can go to their homepage and see, you know, who they could choose from, and it's a pretty good list.
You know, that would be helpful.
It's also a benefit for the landscapers to actually do the
Advertise.
licensures, because then we are advertising their names
Yeah.
for them as approved vendors for the village.
Right, that's what
Okay.
Evanston does.
Nice.
Um,
Okay,
So, thank you.
thank you.
And Highland Park does that as well.
Okay. All right. Moving on, you can stick through the rest of the administrative stuff, but village staff report?
Yeah, so tomorrow night, the PCZBA is meeting and they are discussing their draft comprehensive land use plan update. There are some sustainability or kind of parks, open land sort of recommendations within that as well. So if you have the time or even want to take a look at the plan and provide comments separately, you're welcome to do that.
Sorry, when are they meeting?
They're actually meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah,
Night
I
at the
saw
same
that their
time as
stuff's
us.
on the agenda packets list
Yeah.
of the village
Yeah,
website.
and it's still a workshop, but we're looking at potentially having that public hearing start next month for that plan,
The
so.
packet was 245 pages.
Yes. So,
It's like, I'll be busy for the next month.
that is one item, and the other one is that
So do they want comments by tomorrow or comments in 60 days?
comments, so the public hearing will start next month likely. There can be comments made before that, there can be comments made after that. It's a process, so. Yeah. And then, I don't wanna steal Chair Renner's thunder, but we're working on the draft lighting ordinance as, he mentioned, and we are working with the consultant to take a look at that, so if you wanna.
Yeah, we
add
picked
in.
up all his comments, and we got your comments, then we sent it back to him, and he kind of gave us final comments. And we're just gonna go through, look at those, if we agree with them, get them into the draft, and then get it for the next meeting to you. And at that next meeting, the consultant will be on a Zoom meeting.
Oh, good.
So you guys can go, oh, I have a question about this, or could you explain to what's going on in the world and the country, and what do you think of our, you know, it's great to have him, because this is what he does for a living. is
That'd be
the-
great.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that next meeting is scheduled for March 18th, so if you know that you won't be available, if you can let us know as soon
March
as
18th.
possible, just since we are planning that with the consultant.
Let me look right now. Just check. Nope, I'm here.
Great.
Okay, members' reports, anything you want to bring up?
The only thing I would bring up is about the orange bag, the new recycling.
Oh, yeah,
We're doing that at home, and my husband tells me that the only way he can get the bags is online. They're not at Target
My
yet.
husband couldn't find them either.
No.
Joel, am I
No.
for us?
No, he was looking at Heinen's. I mean, he
okay.
couldn't find it. It doesn't mean they're not there, but he couldn't find them and he was looking.
No, you know, not Jewel, not Target, not Heinen's. So online, yes, and we're very enthused about it. It's pretty straightforward. So that's my only thing is,
Yeah,
Yeah, our understanding is that they are working on getting them at Heinen's and at Target, and that I believe the Jewel in Lake Forest is supposed to have them. But beyond that, we understand your frustration with that,
Yes.
and we've reached out to try to see when they may have them, but we haven't heard back yet.
and the other thing is, and I don't know if this is possible, but maybe sometime during the summer, we can be on the Innovasi corner on a farmer's market day with the orange bags and samples of, these can go in. I mean, we're so happy that the styrofoam can go in.
I wonder if Green Minds
peanuts.
would be willing to do something like that.
Say that again?
I wonder if Green Minds would be willing to do that. It seems like it's sort of their
Yeah.
wheelhouse.
I mean, this is something I've talked about a couple of times, just members of this committee signing up for a Friday or two farmer's market. Obviously, Lily, it might be well, in the summertime though, it would be something that on a Friday you might be able to sit at a farmer's market and sort of voice the initiatives, be a face of the sustainability committee for anyone who comes up and talks about those things.
I think it's a
Having
great
some
idea.
things printed out that
Yep.
talks about the lights, the leaf blower, like really just kind of be a resource for people to talk to and find out more information
Suggestion
about.
box.
Yeah.
And I
So
mean,
it's tricky for some of us who work full-time in an
Yes.
office.
obviously. But given enough, maybe prep time, a day off could be taken or something like that, so that we're able to do that. I mean, I don't think we need to be at every farmer's market, but obviously there are going to be some very popular ones.
Put me on the list, I can definitely do
Marietta,
it.
what does your bag cost?
I have no idea. Chip's in charge of that one.
You get like a box, right?
You get a whole box, just like you get, a box of the big black trash bags, you get a box like that. And we keep it, inside so we can always fill it up, and
Yeah.
you take it yourself, which is fine.
Yeah.
That's easy because it's not heavy.
But that's a huge barrier for a lot of
Yeah.
people. Like, a lot of the community is not gonna adopt it if they have to take it. I mean, my family does do that kind of thing.
So do we.
But we're also on this committee, like, we
Yeah.
are into sustainability.
This is in our DNA.
It's gonna be a barrier, like, we'll never get broad participation.
I
also-
mean,
I'm a
I know
skeptic.
a lot more people
FD,
have
that
adopted
recyclable-
it this year than they had last year.
Yes.
It is a program that is growing and gaining speed, and I think it has the right momentum, and hopefully Groot will be able to recognize that, but I know right now they probably don't have the capabilities to be able to do something like that. And I don't think we would use village resources to just go around and
No.
pick that stuff up. So I think we're moving in the right direction with it, but I agree it is sort of a prohibitive process. And I think that is the same issue that we've been facing with food waste for a lot of people, which would be another great topic of discussion at the farmer's
farmer's
market.
market,
On your
yes.
curb. I mean, that can be picked up on your curb.
Yeah.
So that-
Yes,
Depends
but a
on
lot
the
of people
street,
don't
though.
know that.
Well, I think what's gonna happen is that we negotiate the good contract, 2 or 3 years or whatever. In the next revision, we will look at having curbside pickup.
For the orange bag recyclables.
Whether they say no or yes, we would put it as part of the negotiation.
Nice.
Speaking of that, if I can jump into the chair's report.
Oh, wait, well, I have,
go ahead.
I
Go
have
ahead.
something too. I met with the professor of environmental science at the Lake Forest High School. She was Candace Davenport. She is an old classmate of mine. I've known her since probably the 4th grade. And she grew up in Lake Bluff, and she works at Lake Forest High School, and she's been there forever. And she's been fighting for the past 10 years to get solar panels at the high school, and she's been shot down every single step of the way. She's been trying to get food. She's been trying to get recycling there.
Could have recycling, that'd be great.
She's been trying to get food waste removal, all of that stuff, which the high school has been absolutely just a block in her way every step of the way. But the reason why I met with her is because we had been discussing potentially tapping high school students to help us with maybe some extra credit video projects that help us get our messagings out about the initiatives that we've been talking about for sustainability. And while she loved the idea and she loved partnering with the village, her one comment was, these students are busy from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. every single day. So we would probably be better served if we were able to tap possibly the middle school students to see if they might be able to do any sort of projects around awareness. Clearly, we are pretty late in the school year now, and we probably won't be able to do anything like that. But her recommendation was,
Should you talk about the new media program? Because if it became an assignment, so it's actually, they're getting school credit
Yes.
for doing it?
she
then
did,
it's
and
worth-
she said the individual who is in charge of it, I don't want to call him a teacher, but I guess he is a teacher, is new. I think I thought there was a new person who just took it over last year. said that he could potentially be receptive to it, but it's a pretty small number of students who are in that class. I was trying to get all of her seniors to commit to an extra credit project by doing some sort of informational thing, and she was very hesitant and resistant, simply because of, as I mentioned, these kids are busy from 6 a.m. to 9
No,
p.m.
it's
every day.
Rob Douglas. He's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah. I don't have a relationship with him, but I can certainly reach out. I think in the summertime, or potentially even before the summertime, would be a good time to try and get on curriculums with the middle school, to see if there is any sort of spark that happens in order to help us start, again, sharing the information, the education that we need to be doing, especially at that younger age. I think it's a really smart idea to get that younger age, because they will become advocates who will not be going to a college in 2 years. They will be here for the next 5, 6, 7 years, and living and breathing the work that we're actually trying to do. So I think it's a very interesting topic of discussion, and something that we hope to pursue a little bit further.
Yeah, I think it would be good, even if it's not a whole project. I know that some of the English teachers who also teach or are involved in theater give extra credit for going to the plays. If there could be something with like Enviro, like if you came to one of these meetings, you would get extra credit or
Well,
something.
you get extra credit if you go to the restoration days with Lake Bluff Open Land. The other thing is that, you know, Lake Forest College has an environmental studies program. So it could be that a student does their, you know, gets credit for something. I don't know what would qualify.
An
but-
Instagram post, yeah. Something like that. So, to be continued.
So, about the use of the public works, I see a great demand. I go there all the time to bring stuff.
Yeah.
Particularly, I like the electronics recycling program.
And clothing too.
Yeah, clothing.
Clothing,
batteries.
right.
One of the things I noticed in going there a couple times, especially around the holidays or around certain days, is that the dumpsters are overloaded, particularly the box recycling from all the Amazon stuff. And I think I brought this up. I think that the village should be looking at an extra dumpster or two out there. We want to, because I load up the car and it's like, I don't have something on my app that says, don't come here, we're full. And then we load up the whole car and spend, an hour separating everything, getting it together, and the orange bags or whatever.
Yes.
You get there and it's like, he says, we don't have any more room. It's like, what?
Yeah.
I just drove here with all this stuff. So I think that we need to look at, particularly on the recyclables, the box and paper collections, we could use another skid out there. I don't know if I brought it up before, well, let me go to the next one. I don't know if the committee has any role in bird flu, but we do have the chicken ordinance.
Yeah, this one.
And I've been reading a lot of stories about people getting sick, including backyard chicken owners, getting bird flu, because right now the virus is only from animal to human. It's not human to human. Eventually, it could become human to human if enough people pick it up from birds and cats and other things. It'll mutate within the human. So I know that for a while there was a recommendation, take your bird feeders out of your backyards.
Right, right.
That's
don't-
not a recommendation anymore.
No,
I
it's
know,
not.
but I'm just saying, like with the chicken coops, there's been some kids who've gotten sick who've been, like wild birds, geese, or, poop, and I'm not a scientist, I've just seen these things like, and I'm thinking, okay, spring and summer is gonna be around, and people are gonna be out. Is there risks at the beach? Is there risks in the water? Is there risk from your cat eating a bird? I'm.
It'd be interesting to see if something like the Extension Service has recommendations around
Right,
that.
so
or
I don't know if
some-
Lake County Health Department could send us something for the next meeting, just as an information.
Or also, we don't have that many chicken
Mm-hmm.
owners, so if the village wanted to circulate this is what Lake County Health Department is saying, this is what, whatever the guidance is,
Yeah.
just to make sure they have I'm sure they're,
Right, I think what it
Watching.
was is that a wild bird had contaminated the guy's backyard chickens, who then
well, sure.
got the guy sick, so I'm a little concerned about that.
Well, a lot of lakefront waterfowl's been impacted.
Yes, I've heard, again, news reports of 100 geese falling out of the sky in Iowa, and I don't know if the village is talking to the community members, especially as we come up on the warmer months where people are out more and kids are out more.
But they think it'll be better when it gets warmer.
Yeah, when it gets warmer, the bird flu
Is that what they
starts
said?
to go away, yeah.
They said it'll
Okay.
start to go away.
So
Okay.
as soon as it warms up, then the risk goes down.
Okay, so it's less likely that the birds would be sick or, yeah. I just don't know if it's how much is our area or not, so.
That's something that we can look into. Definitely, I would say, we can reach out to the health department and see if they have any guidance
Guidelines,
for
yeah.
backyard chickens, and we can communicate that with the handful
Backyard
that we
chickens, but
have.
just general good practices for the community.
Yeah.
I've been involved in part of my job with a lot of the design and building of AI facilities around the country, and we had a really good, I can sing a link to the video from my company, had a really good discussion in parts of this about how much energy AI takes up. People get on their phone and they ask questions, or they ask it to write a script or help them with their homework, or to solve a problem, or to make a fake video. People enjoy using it, but I think they don't realize that over a typical Google search, it's like 100 times more energy.
Right.
The equipment that is doing this work for them when they use their phone or use their computer could power a house for a day or two, just to ask one person one question. So I
Let's
think,
not discuss Bitcoin mining.
yeah, no,
Let us not.
no.
But what do we do about, all that information is just coming out
I'm
right now. It's
just- I know it's-
mind-blowing.
Yeah, I think for this committee, it's just an informational discussion that we're aware of it. I think that the discussions that some of the universities who do this work, not private industry, but the universities, are starting to ask their researchers, if you want the computer to do something for you, can you please choose it to have it done over several days, rather than I want it in 5 seconds?
Do it at night or something.
Right, or at night, or, and then they're talking about maybe there might be carbon taxes, like, okay, you want to use the university's computer to do this calculation, there might be a fee for that. And I liken it to you remember back in the day, there used to be data limits, well, there's still data limits today, but there used to be charges for how much data you use. There was consumption tax.
Yes.
And I would love to see an AI consumption tax, but that's again at a national or state level. I just bringing it up that we all love AI and the fun things it'll do, but it is an energy hog. So that's all I've got. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
I
Aye.
Thank you, Michael.
Hope you feel better.
feel better.
Thank you, guys.
It's always a
Recording
pleasure.
stopped.
It's always a pleasure coming to these meetings.
Yes.